What is up, guys? We are here with another video. How is everyone doing today? Today's been a really weird week. I've been playing a crap ton of this character. I said I was gonna make a guide the day after, and let me tell you, that didn't work out. I had to experiment a lot more with him than I thought, because initially he had a very bad reception. So we're gonna talk about him today. Hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, this character has to be the most controversial character so far of the entire game, more so than any of the other weird picks that we've seen at the top tiers. This one has to be the most lackluster experience, I want to say, because this kit is full of issues. That being said, this character is probably one of the most undervalued characters in the game. And he has his own way of being broken. We're gonna go over his whole kit and explain today. Like I said, I wanted to put the guide out the next day, but there were so many different ways to build him, and there is a lot of different ways to build him. I have a preferred build path that I like to take him in, which is really just attack speed and tankiness, to TLDR. But like I said, we're going to go over everything. We're going to understand how he works and exactly what the text is that I use. This video is probably going to take a little bit more time than the Aurora one, I imagine, who is a lot more of a simple character. He does have technically, like 2 extra abilities. So yes, that is a huge mechanic. That being said, there is a little different things you can do with it. So like I said, we're gonna go over that. But if you guys do enjoy the video, please do drop a subscribe. You guys have been supporting the crap out of me. We're bordering 1,200, so hopefully we can hit 2,000 by the end of the year. I hope we can. Fingers crossed. And yeah, we'll be covering all the characters like this next month. We'll cover Iggy and Scorch, unfortunately, as well as Crunch, who I'm pretty much looking forward to the most out of the next 3 months. Then we get Mako and Greystone, and Greystone's gonna be huge, man. I probably have more hours on him than I have on Wukong. So, but yeah. Anyways, we are going to go over all this. So, like I said, let's get right into the video. Wukong, I love him. Personally, I think he's really good. So you can say this is bias, me saying he's absolutely broken, bonkers, crazy. But I have to say, if you guys follow this guide, which I'm going to show you everything in his kit and how you can utilize it, you might find a certain way that you personally like to play him, because I will say right now, my personal way of playing this character isn't exactly the easiest. Well, I think it's the easiest, sorry, but I don't think it's exactly the safest for what his kit offers. He functions a lot like Chimera, I will say, like a lot. He has a good escape, or a decent escape, but he's pretty much high commitment, and it's pretty easy to kind of get like pinned down versus what, and again, we'll go over this. I know you're like, but pinned down, but how is that possible? Yeah, no, 100%. Pretty elusive normally, but the way we're going to play him isn't going to be that elusive. He's a very mobile character if you want him to be, but his kit just doesn't synergize well at all. You can see actually in the video that right now, I'm not upgrading one of his abilities, and we're going to go over that as to why the reasoning is. But his normal abilities are a little weird and clunky. Like I said, they're just they're not broken, but they're just lackluster. Like his whole kit is about defense, despite him being an auto attacker, which is really strange to me. I didn't quite understand that. Now, he's always been this way, but his auto attacks and his clones had different mechanics back in base Paragon, and there were different items to support him. He's always been a little weird early game, and I think he got his ultimate, like, clones earlier. But his first 6 levels are first 5 levels are extremely painful. But once you get to that 6th level, and I get it, it's like, but you have to get to the 6th level. I mean, even here, you know, I got a few kills because the early game, getting level 6 is not really that hard if you just know how to play. Getting invaded sucks. Your team should rotate for you. Your team rotates. You can win fights even as Wukong. You do decent damage early, despite not really having anything in your kit to support the jungle. It's still going to be better than like a Kalari or a Chimera usually. So my preferred role would be probably take him in the jungle, just because you can hyper farm. Solo seems smarter, but I usually get caught out a little bit in solo. I haven't practiced enough in the solo lane with him. He's just a little, again, he's a little weird in all roles right now, I guess. He functions a little bit differently than every other character. Just more of a split pusher, but a very, very strong engager depending on how you play him. So, yep, Wukong, like I said, probably the most controversial character. I'm also going to be making another tier list, and I'm very, very, very excited to place him on it, because I have differing opinions from a lot of sides, especially because I'm playing him. But yep. So let's go over his kit. Like I said, it's going to take a while. We do have a lot to talk about and basically what the techs are. Wukong, literally, is probably the best auto attacker in the game. I think let's start with that. He is the best auto attacker in the game. His kit supports the ability to obviously burn objectives, is what you've seen. It just supports basically 1v1ing in a very strong manner. Pretty much no real good CC. He has a pushback, not really the best thing ever, but like I said, he also at level 6 is when his clone summon mechanic works, and we'll go over that as well. But yeah, he's an auto attacker. He is a warrior, so out of all the warriors, obviously he was added to that warrior pool. Now we have 6, luckily. He is physical, so magical for Kwong, physical for everyone else. Out of all these warriors, he's probably he's still pretty tanky. But he does function a lot like a carry. Not as strong early game, really strong in the late game. Like, and I mean insanely strong. I mean, he gets to a point where he can just tank inhibitors. And I'm actually going to display that in this video here, where I just run into the inhibitor and just completely take it. It's disgusting. So if your team loses a fight, I've gotten so close to just ending games on my own, even with 3 other people on my team just absolutely feeding and throwing. Let me get rid of this build. All right, so Wukong. His abilities, like I said. So you can see he has this chain stance. Now, at level 1, you will not have this stance. So his first ability is that you'd want to get would be his 2 birds, 1 stone, right? Well, his auto attack first off, just, white arcs, 2 white arcs. I think it does less damage base than the other warriors, I believe, because he's supposed to be more of like a warrior carry, but does less damage, I believe. Make up to make up with that, he has clones. And then his right click is going to be 2 birds, 1 stone. It extends the staff of me who have to learn learning chain stance. Different landing actions and bonus effects are available during depending on the stance. So at level 1, when you get the ability, right, you are going to have just this push. That's it. That's all you're going to have. Sorry, it's not a push. It's just a attack. It doesn't push. It pierces minions, which is really nice. It's just a poke. It doesn't do anything special. It's just damage. It's nice. It's burst. It's a really good early poking tool. I mean, you're doing like what, 105 at level 1 versus your 69 autos. So without even putting yourself in danger against another melee, you could just keep poking them. And you can see where I'm going with this when it comes to solo lane, because you can kind of just keep bullying them. All right. And then his other, his next probably prominent ability outside of his stance change, which we'll kind of touch, would be his jump. So if you were to get the second, you wouldn't get stance change, you would have a double jump. The actions change depending on what stance you're in, but for the base form at level 2, if you decided to get that, not the stance, which you should always probably get your escape second, by the way, you basically, so this is your whole kit, basically. Well, kind of. You have the double jump, right? And then you have right click. The double jump is initiated by pressing space twice, so it's not a key press, it is literally just pressing the space button twice. And then his right click, obviously, just being right click. Pretty simple kit. Nothing extremely complicated about, no stancing. And then if you get his ultimate, he gets the clone mechanic, where he summons 1,000,000 clones based on his attack speed to assist him in fighting. They kind of spawn where you're standing around in a wide arc, and they cleave pretty wide. So if you're clearing waves, it's pretty easy to just kind of walk through the wave and clear it. But you'll always get more benefit by standing still, technically, and attacking your opponent if they're not moving and kind of inching towards them. Because you don't want your clones to kind of just like go all over the place. As long as your target's standing still, you can kind of just walk in circles. But, other times if you stand still, your target will stand still. So I like to just sit here and let them wail on me and just absolutely decimate them in a 1v1. But yeah. This is his kit. This is basically all he does. It seems super simple. Double jump, right click, clones. But then we get into the stance change. Stance change. Obviously, his staff is glowing red. So the little soul symbol on the second ability is his strike stance. He chain stance to strike or nimble. Bonus effect changes for each stance. The passive, which this passive is useless. It's terrible. It's a horrible passive. It doesn't really apply consistently. Honestly, they should just remove it altogether and give him something else. Doesn't even need a passive. It's just a useless passive in general. I do utilize it when I'm in lane sometimes, but I barely see it. But if you don't upgrade this ability, this passive doesn't actually apply. Just a heads up. So you won't see this early game pretty much at all. And then you have to kill all of the jungle camps or the lane minions before the passive will take effect, which is why you don't see it early game. It's not about hitting the minions, it's actually when they spawn in. So when they spawn in, they have a 25% chance to actually have that mark on them, which is a pretty low chance, and it's pretty inconsistent. You don't see a lot of those, and it really takes a while for this mechanic to get going. He's supposed to be late game, to be fair. But yeah, so in strike stance, this attack, you can't see, turns into a push. There is no minion here, sadly. I can display this on. I think I can summon minions and push them away. But yes, this does turn into a push, and it's a pretty good ganking tool if you can get behind the enemy. But in 95% of situations, you're probably just going to avoid getting a kill. And trust me, I've done it plenty of times. I've played this character for about, I think, almost 30 hours now, and I've just been trolling so much when it comes to that push because I keep upgrading it, and it literally just it saves them. It usually saves the enemy. It's almost like Wraith rewinding you in a bad situation. The other ability, the cloud ability, now turns into a slam. So you double jump, and instead of doing that, just landing, you do a slam on the way down. You'd think this would be really good versus the double jump, but it's not. As you can see, jumping, right, and hitting it again, trying to go into an auto, takes that much time. Me holding down the button takes way too much time. So it's a pretty useless ability as well. So you're saying, well, why would you ever use this stance? Well, you have another stance to utilize, and this is the stance you're probably going to be in most of the time if you do decide to use it. This stance is useless. It basically shouldn't exist. I really only go to this to farm like kills or to poke when the enemy is low, or if I somehow manage to get behind the enemy, I'll use it and try to push them into the enemy or into my team, or push them into the tower, which is really fun to do. They don't go that far, which they shouldn't because you're an auto attacker. But this also doesn't allow you to use his main kit, which is, you know, auto attacking. He excels in that. Your poke damage only matters if you can follow up with autos. You legit do not care about just sitting there and poking them away. So again, it says it's called strike stance, but it's defensive. And the other attack doesn't do an absurd amount of damage. The slow is way too long. It's a 30% slow. Sorry, way too short. It's a 2-second 30% slow. It should be a 4-second one if it's going to slow. I think it should stun, but it's just terrible. It's bad. Like I said, the end leg animation is too long. They need to give him the Sarah treatment and ease it up. So you switch your stance. You are now in nimble stance. This is basically for the mobility or defense, basically. Your right click turns into a leap. This is probably your best ability. It's going to allow you to gap close way easier. And I mean way easier. It's pretty much the only thing you use for gap closing. You really shouldn't use the other ability for gap closing, unless you just don't have a stance upgraded. And then the other ability is going to be your cloud walk. This ability is literally just used for getting away from a situation, and then farming somewhere else. So if you want to just play a split pushing game, you'll get this ability, you'll stay in this stance, hold your jump for whenever an enemy comes. Do not use it to engage. You will get yourself killed. It's really fun. All you do is double jump like normal. You walk on the sky. It gives you a 40% movement speed buff at max level. So that is really nice. You are pretty fast. Pretty easy to hit, though. You're still going to get shot pretty easily. It's not like you're immune to damage or anything. You don't get damage reduction or anything like that. You could actually utilize this mechanic and then use the leap in the air as well. You can use your abilities in the air, which is really nice. They don't separate the cooldowns, so when you switch stances, which they should allow, by the way, when you switch back to your stance, you still have a cooldown. I think they should change that, because right now, his stances just don't synergize well. He does need a lot of buffs to his strike stance, and I mean a lot, like a whole revamp for his right click and his E, or I guess his Q. Everything else in his kit is fine, but he loses his gap close ability, unless he's in defense stance, and his offense is still terrible in strike stance. And his farming mechanic also in strike stance does not warrant getting it. So don't ever use that stance in fighting. It's just useless. I mean, use it as poke, I guess, and then back up and hope they engage you again. You probably just help them get away in that situation, though. Most of the time, just get as close as you can to them and then leap towards them. Like I said, or use the leap to get away by using Cloud Walk. Now, you actually could synergize these abilities. You can switch stances midway. So let's say you wanted to leap slam, right? You could do that. So you would press right click in this stance, switch, and then slam down. Now this is actually a pretty good engage tool, but the end animation still does not allow you to auto easily. I've seen this used quite a bit from a lot of Wukongs. It's decent. It most likely will just get you killed, but it's a pretty good, decent amount of burst damage. If you're in solo lane, it helps you poke a little bit better, and then you still have, you know, the ability to kind of just like barrage them at level 6. So if you really want to engage and high commit, do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but that is a thing you could do. That's pretty much the only synergy that the kit has, really. And then other than that, leaping, using the right click to leap out. Everything else is just, you have the slam, you have the leap, you have the right click push. But that synergy is pretty nice. I do like doing it. It is a really good gap closer. Yeah, like I said, you're probably thinking, oh, this character sucks. His whole kit doesn't work and he can't stick to his target. Yeah, it does. I will say, I will agree. This is where everyone has a misconception of this character. This is why they think he is absolute dog shit. It's because his kit sucks. It does. I can't even lie. Now, I will say, even though his kit sucks, he still probably is easily one of the most, if not the most broken characters, because if you build correctly, even with this shitty with this shitty setup, you can actually sit there and tank inhibitors, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So, I've been 0-0-0 before, and I've farmed for 15 minutes and been able to out farm everybody in the jungle. I mean, his farm is absolutely ludicrous. It's insane. So let's say you go Spirit's Fang, right? And let's say you kind of just walk up to a camp. It cleaves, right? All of his clones spawn. The more attack speed you have, the more damage you do. So essentially, you translate attack speed to damage. It's not power to damage, which you do need power, a little bit, but you do not need as much power as, say, a Seraph or a Grux. He just doesn't scale as well. I know it says 15% of his scaling. That 50% doesn't really matter. All you care about is getting your attack speed online, because the more attack speed you have, the more clones you have, which means the more damage you have. I'd say cap this out at least 2%, 2.3% at the later end of the game. 2% is fine. Like I said, as long as you're always over 2%, you're good. Now you're probably wondering, how do I get to 2%? Well, simple. Instead, the build I like to do is Spirit's Fang into 2 of these. And I know usually I show my build at the end, but I think it's better to demonstrate that here, because you guys have to have the understanding of why I'm doing this for this specific character. Because he's kind of like Revenant, where you have to build him a certain way by cheesing some item strats. And as long as they don't nerf this tech, he's really strong. So you go Spirit's Fang, right, into the 2 attack speed items. This will get you, I believe, to 2.1 or 2%, which I think is where you should be. That's going to give you the most damage on Wukong in the early game, and it's going to allow you to absolutely shred objectives. Then you can start building your other items, whatever you want it to be. This is the secret tech that I like to use, and I've seen a couple of people copy me from this, but most of the time it's like everyone kind of just builds the full item. No, rush attack speed. It's the only reason you're going to do damage, especially if you have these stances. You're going to have to sit there, auto attack, and then just leap towards your opponent. That's literally all you're going to be doing the entire game is Wukong, and then you split push and hyper farm. Now, this is not a bad way to play, but you will lose out on damage by using these stances, I will say. And you're probably like, oh, what do you mean by using these stances? Well, if you don't know, you can actually just not level the stance. As I explained at the beginning of the video, you actually have a based kit that you can utilize, which is your right click, not pushing, but you still get the full damage. Your stance does not increase your damage. It kind of words it weirdly that makes it sound like it does, but it doesn't. There's no damage increase. You can just leave it unupgraded. It's kind of annoying to have the UI on the screen, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could just sit there and, again, not upgrade the ability. Just ignore that. And yeah, actually I need to upgrade it real quick because I messed up my stance. It's a training mode bug. You can't actually get defense stance if you don't upgrade it. And let me reset my thing. Yeah, you can just not take the stance. What this allows you to do is to have more damage. This is essentially what you do, because you get the double jump, which is probably a better gap closer than the right click, let's be honest. It goes farther, it feels smoother, and you can auto on the way down. Just this alone makes him a little bit better than his defense stance. But it is high commitment. Now you can jump up ledges, not every ledge, especially if you're sprinting. Get a wide jump. You can also jump up in the jungle when you're going for your objectives, which is really nice. So you can kind of jump down, finesse people, jump back up. It's not as good as the fly, and it is a good engage tool if you're not getting slowed. I mean, look how much distance I cover, and then you go into the auto. It's really good. I've used it to catch people. I've used it to jump out of orb pit straight up there and still was able to stick to a target. And then a Gideon, by the way, who teleported up and he had to blink away, which you're going to see in a video coming up. It's a fantastic mobility tool, which is crazy because ignoring one of his ability makes his kit better in terms of chase, which is crazy to me. So yes, this double jump is amazing. Now the other ability goes that far. I know that's insanely far. But instead of pushing them back, it keeps them in place. It doesn't do a stun. It's just poke. It's ranged. It's nice. He's the only other warrior in the game aside from Wukong and Sereth. But, you know, Sereth is a very low poke until get crit. And you probably weren't going to get crit. But his poke does a lot of damage. It's nice. It's very far ranged. You can outpoke a solo lane like this too if you want to play it. I recommend at least to level 6 going no stance. I think it's just the way to play. Honestly, I think the whole game is the way to play. Like I said, high commitment character, very skilled. But yes, like I said, this actually allows you to do more damage than at getting your stances, which I think is stupid. I think that's why they need to fix the stances. But by doing this, it allows you to absolutely decimate. If you hold your auto attack button and right click, it barely interrupts the clones, gives you a burst of damage, and then still allows you to outrange and poke your opponent. So if you lose track of your opponent and they actually start sprint mode, once they enter sprint mode, you can just right click and then get on them again. And then you have your spirit strength for the slow, you get your acceleration to stay on the target. It's freaking insane. It is absolutely nutty. I love this mechanic. And yeah, I think this is where people haven't been informed about his ability to absolutely decimate everybody. He's unstoppable. I really don't know if there's a single character in the game, maybe Wukong, if they tried to kill him with all their might, that could actually take him out. It is very difficult for people to take me out in a 1v1. And it's also very difficult in a team fight to take me out because I am just shredding their team. I run towards them, and even if I'm dying, I just start hitting them and make sure they're low. And I've been jumped on by 5 people before. I've ran into them and if I'm not getting CC'd to high hell, I'm able to just shred their carries in their mid. It's disgusting. Make sure you're using right click off cooldown or use it for poke. You can save it, but I would just use it off cooldown if you can afford it. Then yeah, stick to your target. Make sure you're automating correctly, obviously. And then if you really need to, make sure you're moving forward when you want to do the leap. Don't be standing still or you'll just jump up straight. You have to be moving forward. It's better if you're in sprint mode, you get more distance. So if you want to run away and then use it to jump somewhere else, also up works. You kind of get more distance that way. But you go extremely far. I mean, I made it from the end of the circle all the way into the clone. Or into the test dummy. So the build, we're going to go over the build on the site, which I have not put together actually. We're going to go over the build on the site, but I'm going to show you specifically why also I consider this character absolutely broken. Normally, let's say, we're going to show you a full damage build for Wukong will not allow you to do your things. We're going to go full attack speed, full damage. Let's go crit. Here we go, Decima, Spirit's Armor. We're at 2.3 already. We finish up with the crits. So you are now an absolutely shredding monster. Also, actually, let me talk about the clone's interaction before I go and try to tank towers. His clones do not proc any passives. You only proc passives on your base auto attacks. So if you're trying to go like in a lifesteal build and you're like, I'm going to heal an insane amount, or you're trying to go a Spirit's Fang build, you're like, the clones are going to proc it, or pretty much any item effect in the game, as far as I'm aware, does not proc this. You only proc it on your base hit, so you don't have a stem to support this. So crit is bad on him because of that, because crit doesn't apply either. So item passives and crit do not apply on his clones. It's just his base auto attacks, again, which makes him pretty bad because you're just going to be really squishy and not able to stick to your target easily, and then you're going to die. Now, if you go into, you do shred orb pretty fast, I will say. Probably faster than you would with a tank build, but you'll die way easier. And if you try to tank a tower, it is very difficult. You can actually get the inhibitor, but it is a very difficult task for you to get. It took a lot of my health, and if anyone is near you, you're dead. There is absolutely no counterplay to that. You're just going to die in every team fight too. It's just not worth it. I do not recommend crit or any sort of full damage build on him. He is a solo laner for a reason. His role, it doesn't even say in the jungle. Stop building full damage. That is not the way to play this character. You are ruining his kit. He should have to take hits. He's a melee character like every other one, so you have to treat him. I know he feels really powerful, but you can actually get a build with full attack speed and still have defense. And I'm going to show you that build, like I said, here today. Now, but let's throw a tank build on him, the ones that I usually like to use, and kind of show you what he's capable of in terms of when he actually has defense to negate the tower damage. So we're going to go with this, and let's get some more health. Why not? All right. Oh, how do I spawn the inhibitor back? There we go. All right. So now, obviously, you can see Wukong is now a massive tank. And you're probably seeing like, wait, but the inhibitor is still dying all the same. Exactly. Honestly, I don't even see a difference. I feel like it's going faster. You lose a lot less HP. It is extremely hard to kill you, and you can still shred this objective. It is disgusting. And this is a tank build Wukong, non-crit. I don't really understand why this interaction exists. It almost feels like I'm doing more damage to that inhibitor, maybe because I'm taking less damage. But it's pretty insane. You're still max attack speed. This is a pretty good tank build. You can switch up some items, core items in this build. We're gonna go over it. Like I said, you need Spirit's Fang, Spirit's Armor, and Zymia's. Those are the 3 you absolutely need. I'd say high end is also a must. The other 2 are switch outs. You could just kind of go what you want. Just make sure you get at least 2% attack speed. So if you do sell the gemstone, or if you want to keep your jungle smite and you want to get an attack speed item, make sure the attack speed item has at least 2%. There is no other good attack speed item in the game aside from gemstone. Lifesteal is not good on you. You could build it, I guess. It'll get you to 2. I think it's a waste. Just get the dash. It's going to help you stick to your target more. Sell your jungle blessing and split push. Now, a big mechanic to this character is the ability of not having to fight for orb, which is really nice. Orb scales off of 3 takes. So what I recommend doing is at a certain point in the game, I'd say after your 3rd or 4th item, when you're a little bit tankier, you can start just throwing yourself at objectives, just straight up throwing yourself. You will eventually take them down as long as the team isn't just absolutely following you and tracking your every move, which most of the time they're grouped as 5, trying to take objectives and do other stuff. Let them have the first orb. Hell, let them have the second orb. Make sure when they're doing that, the second you, or if you're losing a fight and you're late to a fight, just go to a tower and take it. Go to the other side of the map, take the portal, and take it. Now, your goal should also be setting up for those objectives easier. You're the best one to do that in the game. You could solo them. I'd say don't start soloing it until after you got your Spirit's Fang. It's just going to be a lot more difficult with no attack speed, or even just with the attack speed and no power. It's absolutely disgusting how fast you can solo early game. And like I said, you still want to use that attack speed tech, right? The whole entire game, if your attack speed is not over 2%, you did something wrong. So you get your Spirit's Fang, you get your 2 attack speed items, the wind element, you get 2 of them, and your attack speed will always be at 2% at least. And that doesn't even count like deer. Also, yeah, if you are able to get like 3 wind deers, which I've been able to do, you can kind of change your build a little bit. Like you don't actually have to have a lot of CDR. You don't have to have as much attack speed because you get innate attack speed anyways from that. Wind is probably his best deer aside from fire or earth, depending on what build you're going. It's just absolutely disgusting how good wind is for him because it literally kind of lets you change 1 item out, which is really nice. But like I said, the core items you still need are these 4. You can change out the other 2 however you want. As long as you're at 2% attack speed, you're fine. Now, again, objective burn is this character's goal, but you are a really good team fighter, and you'll see that in the video as well. He is just absolutely disgusting when it comes to fighting like actual objectives as well as actual individual people. His best asset is being in a 1v1, but if you're in a team and a stun goes off, whoever you're on most likely is going to die. I've shredded rampages before. I've shredded like just tank supports, which usually don't prosper anyways. It's disgusting how fast you can shred even with no pen. I can't even imagine. Maybe one game you have to build a chainsaw. I haven't even been able to try that on him because it hasn't been necessary. Also because Greatsword has shred. He's disgusting. He is a shredder. He's a 1v1er. He's a split pusher, and you can start just taking objectives. You can take it by yourself. If you really guys are just losing a fight, again, you will find an opportunity to get them. And you guys need to kind of like be aware of those things, because I feel like a lot of people are not taking advantage of that, and they're like, this character's terrible. Like, no, you could solo everything in the game. You could actually just get, you know, solo the core too if you really wanted to. It's pretty disgusting. And you'll be the first one to level 18, because you also should be stealing all. It doesn't really matter what role you're playing, solo or jungle. Steal the jungler's farm, buy a jungle blessing, and steal their farm. There is no reason to why you should not be taking farm in the jungle. Not your farm. Well, take your single camps. You should always take those, because the jungler shouldn't do those. At least right now, currently in the game. But take the enemy jungler's farm. You like, there's nothing, even without a blessing, there's nothing stopping you. If they're on the other side of the map, take the objective, and if they're literally just, you know, running you down, hide, rotate, go into their jungle, greed, take their camps. You will out-level everyone in the game. I promise you. There is not a single character that can keep up with him. If both teams are equal in skill, he will always be ahead. It's always the case. If your team isn't feeding, you're always going to be ahead. And I'm talking about like 3, 4, sometimes even 5 levels ahead, because you're just absolutely shredding objectives, camps. It's disgusting. Yeah. I think pretty much that's everything in his kit. Like I said, very, very complicated character to actually get the hang of, despite being really, really easy, because again, you're just not upgrading one of his abilities. And I know it feels garbage that you literally have to ignore an ability, but that stance change is a hindrance to him. But I promise you guys, try this out. He's definitely a character worth playing. I think he's absolutely broken because he can just out level everybody, out damage just everyone in a 1v1, and tank objectives and take them by himself. I've had games where there's been Murdochs that were like, or in Twin Blast, who dropped 30 kills and they were 80,000 damage, and I've almost been able to beat them just by split pushing, even with every other one of my teammates feeding, maybe except like one person helping me or whatever. Basically playing a solo game. So he's probably the best solo character to play, which I really like, really enjoy. But yep. Let's go into the build segment of the video. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure about all these builds. Like I said, I tested him for 28 hours, and every day I found something new. He's super versatile. So we're gonna go over. I'm probably gonna give you about 3 builds, so look out for that. But my most preferred build is still the attack speed rush. But we're gonna take a look here. Let's switch over to the build site. All right, so here we are in the build segment of the video. Here you can see I wrote a little thing to kind of explain what I would do on him. Just telling you basically don't upgrade the stance. Farm to level 6. You can gank a little bit, but try not to overextend, overcommit, invade if you can. If it's not safe, obviously don't do that. Hopefully your mid follows you to the jungle, because you can win those fights pretty easily. I've been winning all these like before level 6 fights actually, as long as my mid laner's with me, which is really nice. Just gotta be smart about how you engage. Always get your jump second. Obviously, because you're not gonna get your stance chains anyways. But yep. This is the build. This is how you upgrade it. Basically, upgrade your right click as much as possible, then your ultimate as when you can. Ultimate is priority over right, but obviously you get right click max before your ultimate. And then upgrade your Q, and never ever ever upgrade your chain stance. You will do way more damage. It is easier to get in. It is easier to poke from afar, and you can again glide in, do more damage, even without the skywalk. It is higher commitment, but it's way more of a payoff, and you can absolutely decimate people way easier. People are probably shocked that I'm doing it. Sorry, I was getting rid of those ads. All right. Yep, that's the upgrade order, and this is the build path. So this, like I said, I explained in the training room that you should not really build a full item until you have these things online. This basically translates to power, right? You're basically spending, what, 1,500 extra gold, so you're spending about, I don't know, 42,000 gold, basically, to get your objective shred, basically get your 1v1 potential, and this is in the jungle or solo. It doesn't really matter where you are. Go green if you're in solo. Then at level 6, sell your blessing for a jungle, like a smite, and rotate when you can into the jungle. Take their farm, all of it. Like literally, go with the. The only character you should do single camps on is Wukong. He can absolutely shred them really fast. Do those camps. Do every camp in your jungle after level 6. Before level 6, obviously do your multis. Don't do your single camps. It takes too long. But after level 6, do the multis. Or sorry, do the multis and the minis. Get lane farm if you need, like go in mid, take some farm. Hopefully your mid laner will follow you into the jungle. That's what they're supposed to do. So you can secure their other buff and then win that 2v2 fight. And hopefully your solo laner rotates if the other solo laner rotates, or just in general. That'd be nice. But yeah, this is the starting build. Definitely do it. Try it out. I promise you, you hopefully won't be disappointed. Don't get the stance either. If you know how to play Wukong, I promise you, you will have a way better time than you do using his actual kit. His seam is pretty underwhelming due to that, but his early game start is insanely good. I've been dominating with him, absolutely, and it can't just be me. I advise you guys, try this out. I promise it'll work wonders, hopefully. And then also you have the split push potential. If your team is actually good, you got this, I promise. It's so easy to steamroll and get out of control as Wukong and be like 5 levels over everybody. The builds are pretty simple. The core items are going to be Spirit's Fang, Zimia's Spirit's Armor, high end. Those are the 4 core items. The other 2 don't really need to be anything specific, as long as it has 1 attack speed item. I always opt to go with the gray. Sell your blessing eventually. You won't always have this option. Your tank should also have a smite, and honestly, so should your carry when you're going for an actual objective. The good thing about this, even if you were to sell your smite and you got full build, you don't actually have to go for objectives to win the game. You are a walking underling. You do an insane amount of damage. If all 5 of you throw yourself at an inhibitor, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it, even if it's team wipe. So if you guys haven't done orb yet, and you're 3 items in, and you have the tower down, right? Then you should go to the inhibitors with your team. Like your team has to plan this, all 5 of you, and just run into it. Have your soul lane tank it. They'll use all their abilities. Hopefully, you don't have a gadget or a Gideon, but again, run into it and absolutely decimate it. Again, even if they do, stun them out. Fight them kind of like everyone else should be fighting them. Soul lane is going to be focusing the inhibitor. Ultimate people away. Hopefully, it's a Sev or something crazy, so you can kind of split them up. But yeah, for the most part, the soul lane will tank. He'll get out when he's low, and then probably next would go to the jungler. But yes, I promise you, if you guys all just go and siege mid, you can win. It's super simple, super easy. I've done it before. It's not like I wish I could I wish I had a 5 stack in ranked that would listen to me when I want to do this, and I wish I always had a tank in my soul lane. It's very important to have a tank in your game, and with Wukong, having 3 tanks or 2 tanks and like a supporty tank or a Muriel is extremely valuable, or an Narbash. I actually do like Narbash with melees. Any character that can keep you up and sustained. Muriel is an absolute menace on a team in general, and she also enables Wukong extremely heavily by speeding him up, giving him shields, making him basically unkillable. It also makes him easier to actually tank the inhibitors as well as the core. I've been saved so many times in the inhibitor and the core by just while absolutely shredding it. Again, sell your blessing eventually. Get it back when you want to get an objective if you know the enemy team's up. But if you can get away with just wiping the enemy team, that's good too. Or split pushing, which again, if they're all going for orb, which 99% of times all 5 of them are there. And if you're not already in the fight, or even if you are, sometimes it's worth it just to go to whatever is the lowest. Or if the core is taking damage, just run in the enemy core and get it to like 30% or get it to like 50 or 30% ish, right? Because you can do that as Wukong, especially at full build. And the more bodies in the core, the better it is. Like I said, you guys can keep just rushing objectives, and then eventually you'll get all of them, and they'll have weak objectives. Again, you do not need orb. I cannot stress this enough. Get the deer every time. You don't need orb as Wukong. Now, you can get underling as much as you can. Definitely get underling the second it comes up. And, if they're there all rotating on it, go take the portal and then get deer. But for the most part, you really just are focusing underling for the objective to drop in a tower, get it as low as possible, and then you finish the job once you get enough defense. Like I said, the 3 item mark is where it's at, where you get your Spirit Sphinx unlocked. You get enough to, you have the attack speed, you have enough damage. But I would probably wait until 4 items. Like, I wouldn't start diving until you get, like, a good solid foundation of 4 items, which is what I usually like to do. Sometimes I'll dive before that. It just depends on how the game's going. Especially for losing, I'll start diving a little earlier, because I know that we're going to lose if I just keep team fighting with them. And we're already losing. I'm just feeding them at that point, But yeah, that's basically how you play Wukong. The build going into Greatsword and the Dekimas, that's an option. I also have one for Dual Moon. I've actually never tried this build, but I see the merit in doing it. It's a slow plus a speed up. It would technically stack by itself. It should slow them to high hell while still speeding you up. I want to try it. I'm definitely going to try it, hopefully tomorrow, but I've done a lot of testing, and I definitely enjoy. I haven't really been able to get full build ever because we end the game too fast. Like, we actually end the game too quickly, or we're getting smacked. So I'm not getting any farm. It just really depends. But most of the time, the game ends too quickly from our side. Like, we just do too good, and then they just like say, "Oh no, we're surrendering," which happens all the time. So I haven't been in a lot of full build Wukongs. I've tried playing ranked. Either we get smacked, or which I believe I was nearly full build in the only ranked match I lost yesterday at the time of recording. But yeah, like, you can easily, and I mean easily, still take objectives and siege them regardless of situation with any of these builds. It doesn't really matter what you build. I do have another build down here which involves anti-heal. If you need anti-heal, tack this on earlier probably, but don't build the full thing until you need it. You would build this last. So you would sell your blessing earlier, build this last, split push as much as possible. This actually makes you tankier. I've never tried this build either, but if you need anti-heal, I don't really see another way around it. As long as the Narbash is hitting you, you get the anti-heal, and hopefully the carry's killing the Narbash anyways. If he's full his support, and then he's full tanky, then we'll just shred him together. But yep, this is definitely the recommendation I have for the build. I am very much a fan of it. All of these builds, they look really good, but I personally use Greatsword whenever I can get to it. I have not been able to test out the other two, because the first 4 core items are always going to be the same, and 90% of your games are probably going to end before you get full build, even on Wukong, unless you're absolutely smacking in kills. Unfortunately, he's not like Sereth, where he's just going to get every a kill everywhere he goes. He has to actually think about his plays a lot more than she does, despite having such an overpowered kit when it comes to just taking things like objectives and farm. Like I said, play like what I do. I promise you, every single ranked game I play, my jungler that I'm fighting is like 5, 6 levels behind me sometimes. If I'm lucky, they're always losing because I'm just farming my ass off. And I've been invaded before in ranked, and it usually doesn't work, so they just leave. If you get invaded, do not fight by yourself ever. Just leave, no matter who it is. It's not worth it. Unless you get the shield for blue and they invade that, which you should always start at blue, by the way. Get it, but otherwise, no. Just don't worry about the invasions. Like, just run. Hopefully your team is paying attention, because if you get invaded, they should be rotating. They should also be leashing with you. They should always do that. Your right lane, or whatever your side lane is at the time. If you're on right, solo or duo, or the solo duo or the solo laner, depending on what side you're on. If you're going starting blue, they should always leash with you. There's no reason why they shouldn't. It just helps you a lot. It helps you get ganks. That's for every jungler, not just Wukong. But yeah. That's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know this is a very hot take, saying this character is one of the most broken characters in the game. I personally think he's the best character in the game. I'm just gonna say that outright. I know it's like, you're just biased and you just haven't played against high level players. You're not diamond. I get that. But dude, I'm crushing ranked, man. I've had trolls and I've had games where like I've almost ended the game pretty much by myself with only my duo partner, OK Joy usually is with me. And literally us two alone have just almost ended games with my carry, my my carry, my support, and my solo laner absolutely throwing. I've had like a Twin Blast solo, a Murdoch, or it was a Revenant carry, I think it was, and then it was like a support phase that was feeding this Murdoch. And even in this game, man, they barely scratched out a win. I was like, the core was at 10%. I jumped in, I was able to like bypass, and the Rampage was absolutely getting wrecked by me. There was no competition. Now, your damage probably won't be that high because a lot of your game would be focused on just out leveling. Like, if you don't rotate to 1 or 2 fights, that's fine. Like, definitely show up for fights because you do have a lot of damage. Once you get Spirit Swing online, you'll see yourself getting more and more kills. That being said, in higher ranks, obviously it's a little hard to do that. The slower the game is, the better it is for Wukong when you're just taking their jungle. And if you're taking their jungle and they invade you, you basically should have wards in there. Your support should have wards in there. Now, if they're taking their jungle, you want to go and invade them. Don't be afraid to do it once you have Spirit's armor, especially when you get level 6. Just really just run at them. I don't see why you wouldn't. It does take a little bit of time to get online, because you do need your Zimia second, no matter what. You need your Spirit Swings first, because again, it's the best item in the game when it comes to just pure output of damage and attack speed mix with extra health as well. It's just a solid item. It's a really, really good item. Not a solid item. It's really, really good. So definitely build that. Yeah, this is it. This is the build. This is the guide for Wukong. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun doing this. I had a lot of fun experimenting with him. I'm kind of glad that I get to play different characters now, because I really needed to hone in on what he did. It was, I kid you not, literally like yesterday, I found out that upgrading, or I think it was 2 days ago. Oh, technically 2 days ago. It's like the AM of the next morning. I figured out that, oh, you just don't upgrade the stance. And the morning before that, I figured out, oh, just rush attack speed. Like, I didn't know these things, obviously, at first. I was just trying to figure it out. I didn't really think about that. When it comes to rushing attack speed, all you have to do is get 2 30% attack speed things with the Spirit's Fang, and he out damages so many people and he shreds. Like, his clones do too much damage to objectives and structures. I think they should remove the structure damage. I think they should give him a third stance, personally, to fix his like issues. I think they should give him a third stance that you hold to get into, and if you hold it to get out, you basically return to the last stance you were in. So if you were in strike stance and you held that ability down to switch stances, it would put you into the stance that I use that doesn't upgrade. So you have options to switch between. Switching to strike stance would return you basically to your normal form, basically, and then you'd hold it down to go back into the hold stance, which again is that base stance that happens when you don't upgrade. Having those 3 stances would balance out his kit a lot, because it would give you a lot of mobility. It would have useful interactions. It would be like a 1 second, hold, so it wouldn't be too long, obviously. But holding obviously would be a different input. It's kind of like Zen Dash. You'd know when you're holding, it would switch. Even if you tapped that ability in the hold stance, so if you're in that stance I'm in now and you tap the ability, that it would use a different one. It would mean that I don't know what the ability would be. Maybe a speed up or some kind of like immunity, right, to just stay on the target. I don't really think he needs buffs because of his objective push, but I want them to nerf his ability to tank inhibitors basically by removing the clone damage on the inhibitors. I think it's a really unhealthy mechanic, and I think it's just something people haven't caught on to yet, which is why people think he's really bad. He's not one of those like I'm going to kill everyone in the game kind of characters. He's more like a I'm going to make sure everyone is set in the game by making sure their jungle is so far behind and every objective is taken, and then I'm just going to start tanking inhibitors while they're fighting. If we aren't winning, and if we are winning, we're just going to keep winning the fight because I slap like a truck. I'm able to glide through the enemy, and if they focus me, I'm still going to do a lot of damage to them regardless of how farmed they are. And 99% of the time you're going to be more farmed if you weren't just throwing yourself or trying to gank 24/7, unless of course someone is feeding. Obviously if someone is feeding, you're just going to lose. Or if the rotations are bad or whatever the situation is, blah, 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 you're just going to lose. Like, obviously. High pressure is also his weakness in the early game. Before level 6, it's very hard to fight off and evade. Just run away, like I said. Don't worry about anything else. You're basically like Countess. Your early game is not that strong, so run. I do invade with him all the time now. It's pretty close, though, but I have done it plenty of times. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I will put out more guides like this. Next one is probably going to be Shinbi. If, Crunch doesn't come out in the first of the month. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I'm going to chill. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to play more Wukong, of course, and then I'm going to play more Aurora. I haven't really touched her that much, sadly. I want to test Shinbi now, especially with her changes. I've heard she's broken with lifesteal. Again, need testing for that. But, yep, I'm going to check it out. So, yeah. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.